Nation, what's going on? How's everybody doing? I'm hoping everybody has a blessed and wonderful day. Um, as you guys know, it's 6:30 in the afternoon today. I talked to a good friend of mine that I've read through all 13 of the articles that his company has published today, and the tweets and the different traffic that's been going on. But if you guys don't know this man right here on the screen, this is Hondo Carpenter. He's the editor and publisher of Sports Illustrated, the fan nation for Las Vegas Raiders Insider. Hondo, or as I've heard now, we call you a Big H, huh? How you doing, my man?
Hey, Kush, it's great to be on with you. Thanks for having me back. I had such a blast with you before training camp, and I know we had talked about getting back on together, and I appreciate the invite to you and all your listeners. Thanks for having me, my friend.
Absolutely. We're in I guess, a peculiar situation today, where they talk about those elephants in the room.
Mm-hmm.
We have an elephant in the room, but we're gonna let that elephant sit for a little bit. It's been a while, I think, pre-draft and since me and you talked. So how's the family? How are you doing? Let's get caught up with you first.
I'm doing great. My family's doing great. My wife and I adopted a baby when he was born, and he just turned 1, and actually he's now 13 months, but everything's going great. All the hecticness of football's going on, but I love it. So no complaints. I'm happily married with a beautiful bride and great children, and God's good all the time.
Have you, I see you're an outdoorsman in the background. Have you had a chance during the season to get outside at all or anything at all?
No, I've been working. I mean, those are animals on the wall that my wife and I, that's 3 rams up there, my son and my son Shane, and my wife and I each killed a ram. But no, I haven't had one chance to go out, and I'm not going to get any chances till after the season.
You know, I definitely appreciate your dedication to the nation. The things that you've talked about over the last, I guess, 6-7 months have really started to show their head. In a good way. I think the last time we talked about Tyree Wilson, it was pre-draft, so we got into discussing some of that stuff. Excited to see him actually wearing a Raider uniform. One of the players, you said Will Anderson and Tyree were those dudes, outside of course, Jalen Carter, who had those issues. From your perspective, how do you think that Tyree is adjusting to the silver and black?
First of all, I appreciate that question, and I'm going to go back, and you're right. There were 2 guys. Now, I know your audience is growing. So for those that didn't hear our last interview before the draft, I said before training camp, I didn't realize it was before the draft. I really owe you an apology. I told you we would do one before training camp. So let me explain what that is. Around the NFL, a guy who's called the dude is somebody that is a can't miss prospect. For example, Jalen Carter was considered by most teams the best player in this draft, but not considered a dude because there were off the field issues in question. A dude is a guy that all indications are there's no issues and this guy's going to work hard, everything else. I told you at the time Will Anderson was the top dude. Tyree Wilson was the second. And the reason some people had Tyree first, some people had Will. Now most had Will first. But the reason that they had Tyree, some of them had Tyree first, is because they thought he had a chance to develop to be more than Will. And a lot of people, when they're selecting a dude at the top, they're not willing to bet on development. They want where a guy is right now. They love Tyree. You may remember I also said the Raiders were only one quarterback that they were interested in. Everyone else was getting the nation to click everything. Total not accurate. You may also remember I said to you, Kush, they were not, unless a quarterback fell to 5, because they were willing to pay the price to go to 5, and that quarterback, now that it's over, I can tell you, was Bryce Young. They were not going to take an offensive player. So there were smoke screens of Paris Johnson. There was no. They knew what they wanted, and they were hoping the draft would fall. They didn't think there was a chance they would get Will. They did not think there was a chance that they would get Bryce. They were hopeful on Tyree, but they were not all that excited. So there was creation of some interest in a Paris Johnson. So somebody ahead of them made a move, and when Tyree Wilson was selected, there were cheers throughout the building. I was in the building, did not hear those cheers where I was at, but was told about them later. And
That's
so,
awesome.
yeah, they go and they get Tyree. Now, let me tell you a couple things about him, if you don't mind, Kush.
Absolutely.
I'm so respectful of your time and your listeners. But
I love it, my friend. I love it.
okay, so let's go back to the Dallas game where you saw him. You saw him just look terrible on his first rush, and that's okay. Michael Mayer looked terrible the first time he went up against Max Crosby too. That's part of the learning curve. Remember, there were people who said Peyton Manning was a bust year one. Just remember that, if you would, please. And there were people in the nation saying Colton Miller was a bust too. So let's just keep it right there and keep it 100. See, I'm learning some things from you, Kush. Did you hear that? Keep it 100. That's from you, my man.
I'm picking it up, man. I'm picking it up. You snuck it in there pretty good too, man. I wasn't even noticing it. You snuck it in just like I would.
That's a shout out to my man Kush. Okay, so let me tell you what happened. If you DVR'd the game, go back and watch it.
Mm-hmm.
The second one, he bull rushed this guy, a second stringer.
Yep.
A guy who's going to play a lot. He bull rushed him, and the guy was so stunned by his strength and athleticism that he went past the quarterback and just missed it. By the time he's looking for the quarterback, he'd already passed him.
Yes, he did.
I love Tyree. What an attitude. What a hard worker. His teammates love him. They don't like him. He's a sponge. He's a listener. He takes notes. He watches film. I don't think the nation at this point has anything to be concerned. Now, I have always said I don't judge rookies on year one.
Yeah.
Because some guys do super well pending on coaching. Some guys struggle a little bit, sometimes playing a new position, in NFL or a new scheme. I'm not going to name the quarterback, but I knew a quarterback one time that when he got to the NFL had never taken a snap from under center. Gets to the NFL, everyone's like, he's a bust, he's a bust. The guy's on his way to the Hall of Fame now. But, the first year to me, and I've done this for decades, you can't judge a guy year one. You can get an idea, you can't make a final judgment. Now, he's going to have to produce, and he's going to have to produce quick. But I can tell you there is nothing about Tyree Wilson that has anybody discouraged. And this is the thing I laughed about. You may remember when I was on with you, Kush, before the draft, I told everyone, relax.
Yep.
There's not going to be a deal. They're going to franchise tag him. In fact, I think they had franchise tagged him by that time. But I told everybody, Josh is going to be in the building by week one. There's no drama here. I said, Jimmy's going to be ready. No drama. I told everybody Tyree would be ready. There's no drama. They purposely went slow with Tyree. They just wanted him to heal, get 100%, and that's fine. But he has come along. I saw him. I have to be careful. We're not allowed to give information that would be revealing of scheme or schematics. Mm-hmm. Which I don't blame no NFL team. That's part of our agreement as a professional media member. That's why I can go catch a practice in Denver, and they know I'm not going to reveal it. It's part of my agreement. But let's just say Tyree is a freak. That guy has muscles in places I haven't seen in my body in 40 years. And I have watched him do some things to some grown men now.
Wow.
And in the NFL, now he's raw. Just like we saw in that last game where we drove the quarterback the offensive lineman so far in a bull rush. By the time he looks, the quarterback's, smoking a Pall Mall and probably having a Miller Lite.
Yeah.
And the play's been over. But he's that kind of guy. You're going to see flashes from him that you're like, whoa.
Yep.
And you're going to see some flashes where you're like, whoa. It's part of the learning curve because you have to understand something. Tyree has been a physical specimen his whole football career. So he's not had to use technique.
Right.
It's, for example, if you and I were single and we walked into an Applebee's and ordered an order of breadsticks, you're a smooth guy, Cush. You're going to have 25 women sitting there
Yeah.
talking to you.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to have 25 asking me, are you his driver? Okay. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just the way it works. I'm a little raw, but, but my point is, and I'm very happily married. I didn't mean that anyway, but,
hypothetically.
Yeah, but my point is that he's really raw and he's going to have to grow into understanding everybody's talented now. He's gotten put on his rear end a couple times because guys that probably aren't as good as him had better technique. And at this level, everybody's good. So now it's going to be learning that technique, and he is, and he's dedicated to it. He's talking to guys. He's constantly talking to Max Crosby. Let me go a little bit further. As you can tell by the mounts above my head, I am an outdoorsman. I love the outdoors.
Absolutely.
There's an old Hollywood cowboy named Roy Rogers, and he was famous for saying the best thing for a young horse is a wet saddle blanket.
Yep.
And what he meant is just going out there and working it. And working it and working it and working it. The best thing for a young guy like Tyree Wilson is reps. And he's getting them. He's getting better. I'm going to say this, Cush, and I'm inviting myself back on your ever-popular podcast.
Anytime.
Bring me back at the end of the year, barring injury. The Tyree Wilson you see early ain't going to be the same Tyree you see at the end.
Okay.
And dear God, nobody tweet at me anymore because I just mute you and you put, he's a bust like Cleveland Farrell. First of all, they're completely different players. They're not the same person. They're completely different players. But I'm also going to give you one other little thing. I don't know when in the year you're going to see it. And I'm not going to break any schematic rules.
Absolutely not. Yeah.
But I think you're going to see Tyree in a couple situations. You're going to be like, that's what Hondo was talking about. Okay. It's going to be a fun year to watch.
I like it. When I hear some of the sound bites from Tyree, I was listening to him earlier. You know how you just kind of expect someone to carry themselves a certain way, and then you're I mean, surprisingly, you're surprised by how kind of raw he is in the locker room. I thought that he was you see his appearance, he seems like he's more of like a military yes sir, no sir kind of guy, which I'm sure that he is, but it seemed like when they called him in the locker room earlier today, I think it was Vic that had a sound bite on him, and they asked him, they said, how do you feel about, going to the game? Do you feel like you're ready to go? And they had to blurt out a couple of his sound bites there. I'm like, oh, the kid got some spice in him, I like that.
Well, he's been hanging around Max Crosby.
I tell you what, if there was a duo that if we're looking at in, 3 to 5 years, that's the duo that I would want to see for our team. It just seems like both of those guys are leaders. They're ready to, take that next step. And then Tyree is going to be looking for someone to be able to mold his game off of to get him to that next level,
I don't know. I don't know if you just said that Tyree is a leader like Max. I don't know that yet. Maybe you do. I don't know yet. I haven't seen that.
The only
but he may be.
The only thing I'm basing that opinion off of is just speculation and things that I've heard just in the draft process. So I heard that Tyree is a guy that was a team captain at Texas Tech, and during the draft process, it came out that I guess a player wasn't working hard enough during the practice, or you could tell he was really dogging it. And before, Tyree didn't say anything. He didn't call the guy out, right there in front of everyone else. But when he got back to the locker room, he took his name tag off the board. And so when the guy came back to his locker room, he noticed, his name tag was missing. He said, "Hey, Tyree got your name tag. You need to go talk to him." And so just hearing that, that shows a different type of leadership that most people don't really carry themselves with. You know, everyone else just wants to be that brass, like grab your helmet, hey, you got to do this, you got to do that. He took it, sound like he took the guy's name tag, let him know, hey, you got to come back and come talk to me at some point, you know, to get this, to get your name back. But we're going to have this conversation about how, you know, we all have to have that buy-in. But as a rookie, I wouldn't expect that leadership to pop out just yet. I would expect him to be, you know, tight-lipped and just be ready to work. And it sounds like that's where he's at, which I'm happy with. Um, Another one on the offensive side, well, two people on the offensive side that I wanted to bring up. You know, Raider Nation is going crazy over Aiden O'Connell. It's someone that, you know, if you read the scouting report and you were really going off of that, you listening to, you know, people like yourself that I wouldn't say we were building up the hype, but we had conversations about it. You know, we looked at the scouting report, said, what is the fit for this system? Do you believe that our lens when we're looking at Aiden, do you think our lens is off, or you think that we have a preseason lens on looking at his performance?
Okay, if we have time, I'm going to go and get into some deep dive stuff. Do we have some time?
Yes, sir.
So I would challenge you or any of your listeners to go back and look at my podcasts I did from the Raiders facility during the draft. Now, the Raiders had Bryce Young as number 2. They loved Aiden O'Connell. In fact, had he come out as a junior, he would have been a first-round pick. And the staff coming from New England already loved him. But he didn't. Now, they also liked Hendon Hooker, but there were some current concerns about Hendon and his how he was healing. And so as the process went on, Aiden was their guy that fit their system and that they had the least concerns about. So you may remember there was a lot of people, are they going to trade up at the bottom of 1 to get Hendon? They had no interest. They wanted Michael Mayer because they knew there was some concerns with Hendon. And they felt like they could go down and get Aiden O'Connell. Now, let me tell you a story that I think will illustrate this very well.
Sure.
Brian Hoyer, I've known Brian for years, back when he was a sophomore in high school. I'm very close to his parents, his brothers, his sisters. Went to his grandma's funeral. That should tell you how close we are.
Wow.
He taught my son, who's now 18 and a freshman in college, how to be a quarterback when he was 6. Wow. And my son played quarterback throughout his up until his junior year.
Okay.
So I've known Brian for years. I get a phone call in which someone within the Patriots organization, not going to say who, let me know that, listen, watching the film of Brian Hoyer at Michigan State, his last year, there were 70 dropped passes. Wow. And most people are not, most teams are lazy and will only read stats and not watch all the film. And they said, we really like him. We think he's a 10 to 12-year NFL quarterback, and we're going to go after him after the draft because nobody's going to draft him.
Right.
Okay. So I made that. I mean, that was well known. I went to Brian's dad and Brian and told him what I had heard. Mm-hmm. Now, the person in the organization did nothing illegal or wrong.
Right.
But that was just them giving me quality information on Brian. Well, now he's entering his 15th year. Now, you may not like Brian Hoyer. That's fine. But the point was he's still getting paid millions of dollars to play backup quarterback in the NFL. And so anybody that wants to rip him, are you getting paid that much money to be a backup, whatever you do?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Now, I'm saying all that to say this. These people look at quarterbacks different. That's why they picked a Tom Brady when nobody else wanted him. It's why they went and picked a Jimmy Garoppolo when nobody else wanted him. It's why they went and got a Mac Jones. And a lot of people wanted him in the first round. And Aiden O'Connell was a guy, they didn't like him. They loved him. Now, I said this draft night. And I took a ton of criticism. People, what are you talking about? What a wasted pick. Go read the comments. It's hilarious.
I remember.
Okay. And so there is nothing from Aiden O'Connell that surprises them. Now, I want you to think about that for a minute. They thought he was that good. Now, they love the fact if Jimmy Garoppolo stays healthy, he's going. Now, remember something. Brian Hoyer tutored Mac Jones. In fact, part of the reason that Brian Hoyer isn't in New England last year was because Josh McDaniels leaves, and this didn't come from Brian, by the way, even though we're friends, this didn't come from Brian.
Okay.
This comes from somebody in the organization.
Okay.
But Bill Belichick was pissed off because he's trying to use a defensive guy and a special teams guy to be offensive coordinators last year. And Brian Hoyer is still tutoring Mac, and Mac's going to Brian and not those guys.
Gotcha.
Okay. So they bring him in, and his purpose is until Aiden knows the playbook, which is a monster. And in a minute, as we go the playbook, I'm going to give your listeners some great insight.
Okay.
Until Aiden gets caught up with how they prepare, how they plan, how they build a playbook. He's there to back up Jimmy, but his role is to get Aiden ready. So for anybody that doesn't like Brian Hoyer, that's fine. But if you're impressed with how far Aiden O'Connell's come, you owe Brian Hoyer big thanks. And so, yeah, there's nothing. I don't think is that you?
Oh, no, that was a car down the road.
Okay. All right. And, but man, you're a better man than me. I got the windows closed, air conditioner pumping. Okay. But I'm fat, you're skinny. Okay. That's why we're at Applebee's. You're talking to the girls. I'm eating pretzels. All right. But anyways,
after this, I'm gonna get ready to get my workout too. I'm just acclimating to the weather right now.
All right. And so I don't think the hype is unfair. But I think people need to tap the brakes from it. Now, do I have a minute to explain the playbook? Because if I do, it's going to put more. Okay. Well, I want to be respectful of you and your listeners' time. I'm hoping not boring people.
No, you're good. Thank you, Hondo. We appreciate that.
All right. So a lot of teams put their playbook in during training camp, and it's a big 3-ring binder. It's a huge deal. It's like you're not old enough to remember this, but it's for your older people. It's like the old LA phone book. It's big and thick. It's a big 3-ring binder.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the problem is that's not how Josh does it. They put a big one in. And then each week, they're not adding 5 or 6 new plays. They're adding another playbook. Now, it's not as big. So by the time you get to the end of the season, it could be 5 of these big 3-ring notebooks. Now, so you're sitting there in week 17, taking on the Denver Broncos at Allegiant Stadium, needing a win to get to 10 and possibly in the playoffs. And Josh McDaniels calls a play you ain't seen since training camp. And you got a 4 3-ring notebooks. So it is imperative that you learn it, that you get it. Now, most people don't know this. These guys are tested every week for their knowledge of the playbook.
Wow.
Every position. You're taking tests. If you don't pass it, you don't dress.
Wow.
That's why some weeks you see guys not dressing. Sometimes it's because of the scheme, or sometimes it's because of an injury. Sometimes it's because they failed the test. They don't know the playbook. Not going to name any names. Just going to say that. So Brian's there. I've heard a lot of people say, we got to put Aiden in now. No, you don't. You just put a lot of money into Jimmy, who's a Super Bowl quarterback that when healthy is really good. And I'm going to tell you right now, Kush, on your show, if Jimmy Garoppolo's healthy for 17 games, the Raiders will win 9 with a chance to steal a couple. Now,
I like it.
That said, Aiden's not there yet because he's already had to learn more playbook in training camp than he learned in all of his years. And he was there a while. It wasn't a cup of coffee. He came there a kid, left a man.
Yeah.
And he's already learned more plays than he learned his entire career in Purdue. And he's only been here a couple of months.
Wow.
And so he's not ready. And if you want to win and you haven't given up on the season, and nobody thinks they should, who's rational, then you can't go with Aiden now. But in the words of the prophet Deion Sanders, he coming.
He coming. I love that, man. I love that. And shout out to Dion, man. That was just a great thing.
I love Deion. Let me tell you, I loved Deion one time. I got 2 or 3 times I've got to spend quite a bit of time with him away from football.
Mm-hmm.
One time was at a men's conference. For men, it was just an incredible. It was a men's ministry conference, and it was phenomenal. Got to spend a lot of time with him. Got to spend time with him at another event, not football related. And then one time, my daughter and I spent a few hours with him. I love Deion. I love him as a man. I love the fact he is transparent. He is genuine. He is a great father. He's not a good father. Mm-hmm. I've been up close with the man. He is a great father. He is genuine. He loves people. He is one of the most kindest human beings I've ever met in my life. And in fact, I sent him a note, went out in the mail on Monday. Just telling him how proud I was of him, and told him the best compliment I could give him is I would let my son play for him in a heartbeat. Just
good dude,
great
man.
guy.
You're a good guy for just sending him that note. One question I really, it's been sitting for a while. I don't know if no one's really got a solution to it or a resolution to it. I don't know if we will here today, but I have to ask you this, Farrell.
Yeah.
What I know you kind of hinted towards him and Matthew Butler the last time you were on and we were talking, and you didn't tip it off too much about some of the things why they sat last year or why they didn't start. I guess I should say not why they sat, but why we didn't see them in the lineup. But from your perspective, what went down in that trade? Because I know we don't really do much business with the Chiefs. Was it something that we saw from Nesta? Was it something from the other D tackles that we saw in the room, or was it just
great question, and we'll get to the bottom of it because I know what happened.
Okay.
So I'm actually going to be writing more about this Friday, so I'm going to leave a couple details out. I got to have a reason for you to come check out what I'm writing, my man.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll absolutely get a taste. You may not get a plate. Okay, is that a deal?
I'm good with that.
Other day I walked in the kitchen. My wife's making dinner. I said, "Can I have a bite?" She said, "A bite." And I said, "Can I have a plate?" She said, "No." So I'm gonna give you a bite, but I ain't giving you a plate. Okay, brother?
It's gonna keep you coming back.
First of all, Matthew and Neil were paid last year to not even dress.
Yeah.
And I said that, I think, on your pod.
You did. You sure did.
Okay. And that's a travesty. Mm-hmm. I think I want to pick my words because I don't like speaking disparagingly about anybody.
You understood.
I think there were a couple of young men who were adjusting to the National Football League. Okay, can we leave it there?
Absolutely.
I think Matthew Butler was a guy that as training camp went on, he had a good training camp. He didn't play as good as Nesta. I'll say this. I don't think that's being fair. I think he probably played as good as Nesta, but Nesta's upside was so much bigger. You may remember, if you go back and watch the video, I asked Josh McDaniels after the last game before the cutdown, how much now in building this roster is about 2023, or, hey, we got a guy here that may be more valuable in 23, but 24 and beyond, he's going to develop into something. And he said that was absolutely true. And I asked Dave Ziegler about it as well. You can watch that interview. Mm-hmm. I think right now Nesta's better than Matthew Butler. So, okay, Nesta just came out like a machine. I mean, you're young, you don't remember this, but there used to be an old Batman TV show. Pow, boom, bang.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, every time you turned around, it was pow, right in the kisser. You saw Nesta popping somebody, and you're like,
I love it.
Wow. I mean, it was just. And so Nesta, and then Byron. Ooh. Love that guy. Love Byron Young too.
Really? Okay.
And so Butler was a guy that I don't feel like they were afraid anyone was going to pick up, and nobody did.
Mm-hmm.
Farrell was a guy that probably had a little bit better tape than Butler. And so Kansas City, needing to get a tackle, was willing to trade for a guy the Raiders were probably going to cut if nobody picked up. I don't know that he would have even gotten a place on the – he probably would have gotten a place on the practice squad, but I'm not as 100% on that one as I am Matthew Butler. Now, the fact that they were willing to trade him to a division rival that they're going to play twice should tell you everything that you needed to know about their level of concern, or maybe his.
Yeah.
We leave it right there. I hope that's
you know, I used to be an Army medic, and whenever there was some stuff that didn't have to be explained, we would just go noted.
Okay.
We noted that.
Well, let me just say this. Now I love you even more, Kush. I didn't know you were a vet. Thanks for your service, man. Thank you for serving the greatest nation in the world. I love you even more, brother.
I appreciate that.
So let me just say this to you, that if you're willing to trade a guy to somebody you're going to have to face twice who is a rival, there is zero level of concern.
Yep.
You follow me?
I'm tracking.
Anyway, so I wish Neil nothing but the best.
Me too.
God bless you.
Yeah.
See you twice this year, and I hope you make the team again next year, and see you twice again, or 3 times even in the playoffs next year.
Two position groups real quick I wanted to pick your brain about as well. How comfortable, I would be more concerned about your perspective as well as equally the regime's perspective of this position group. But I'll ask that in 2 separate parts. How comfortable do you think that this organization feels with the linebackers that we have in the room, and how comfortable do you feel with what we have? Do you think that we filled that gap efficiently?
Well, first of all, I got an article coming Friday or Saturday on how Dave Ziegler built this team. It's a long article. It's like my article about the divorce with David Carr. With Derek Carr.
That was excellent, yeah.
with a ton of detail. I really encourage everyone to read that. But let me just say this. That is the weakest part of their defense. That's just a fact. Now, the signing of Robert Spillane was an absolute coup. Now, this is a guy, the last 6 games of 2022, played every rep on defense and special teams for the Pittsburgh Steelmen. Now, the Steelmen wanted to sign him.
Mm-hmm.
They made him the biggest offer that they could, and the Raiders went more, and they were pissed. I know that for a fact. I know a lot of people in that organization.
Mm-hmm.
They were pissed that they lost him. Now, let me go a step farther with you, my man Kush. Later on, they lost a couple other guys, so they had to pay more money than the Raiders are paying Spillane for a guy to come in and replace him that they didn't want.
Yep.
And so some of my critics, you don't know what you're talking about. They paid this guy more. Yeah, they did, because they lost another guy, and they had the money then.
Right. Devin Bush, I believe, right?
Yeah. So what I want you to understand is there's zero concerns with Robert Spillane.
Good.
They love Luke Masterson. Amari Burney has shown some flashes. That guy is so fast, he can stop on a dime and give you 9 cents change.
It looks like you can hit too.
I'm sorry?
It looks like he can hit a little bit too.
Yeah. He brings a little bit of that spice you were talking about.
Yeah.
Now let me just say, Divine Diablo has taken steps, but here's the problem. Remember, I told you I don't judge rookies year 1.
Right.
Well, when you get into year 3 or more, whatever you put on tape, I'm judging.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of love for Divine. He's just a terrific kid, just a great kid. I really like him. I've had the privilege of meeting his family, great people. But he got to show it in games now.
Yeah.
And he's been around long enough that we can't be talking anymore about potential. You know, there's an old saying my grandmother used to say, the proof of the pudding's in the eating. When, you know, those old grandmothers would get together and talk about who made the best pudding.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they'd eventually say, well, it doesn't matter what you say. I'll meet you at the county fair, and the proof of the pudding's in the eating.
Yep. If it's in
Okay.
here.
And so what I'm going to say is this. I like Divine. I respect him. I think he has the ability to be really good. But the proof of the pudding's in the eating with him now.
Yeah.
He's going to have to produce. And he's going to have to be a high producer. So it's the weakest side. I know that they would have added another linebacker if they could have got one in a trade or somebody got cut. But it's not because there's a lack of talent. It's just very young.
Okay.
So if you're asking me, and my opinion doesn't matter, what I think the regime is thinking, I think they're thinking, okay, we had to go get a Robert Spillane to get guys in the right position, to move guys around. He's a quarterback on the field. You know, I talked about this on my podcast. It is one thing for a player to have vision, to see the play and know where it's going to go before the play develops. Mm-hmm. It is another to be able to process it even quicker to tell everybody else what's going on. Robert Spillane does that.
Okay.
So
okay.
I think Robert helps them. But let me tell you, my critics will say, well, if you think the Raiders are as good as you sound, why don't you think they're a playoff or a Super Bowl team? Well, I'm telling you why. Because I don't put a lot of faith in young players. They have to learn to play this game. I don't know if you like basketball, Kush, but
I love
Tom Izzo is a Hall of Fame basketball coach at Michigan State and a dear friend of mine, just a dear friend. And we were sitting one time in his basement and having a meal, and he was telling me about young players. And he said something I'll never forget. He said, young players got to learn how to win at every level. So you learn how to win at Pee Wee. You learn how to win at high school. And he said, and he gets a lot of the best recruits in America. Watch my Spartans this year. You'll see it. But he said, young players don't know what they don't know. And what worked in high school isn't going to work at Michigan State. And Michigan State's not going to work in the NBA. Same thing. What worked at Texas Tech for Tyree Wilson is not going to work in the NBA when he's going against a Trent Williams or a Colton Miller in practice.
Right.
And so there's just some young players that don't know what they know. They're going to have to learn technique. I'm willing to show a lot of grace there. And I want to make it clear it's not personal, but with Divine Diablo, I mean, proof of the pudding's in the eating now. Yeah, and I think I believe in him. I think you're going to see it. But we haven't as of now, and he's been in a few years. So let's pretend I'm not from Michigan. Let's say I'm from Missouri, and it's a show-me state. Show me, baby.
Yeah, you got to.
So again, those are the reasons I don't think that they're an AFC contender. I don't think they're a contender for the AFC West. It's another reason why I don't think they're Super Bowl, because my job is, I'm not a cheerleader. I'm not a fan. My job is to give unbiased information. I think this is a good young team that's going to take a step, and I expect Divine to take a step. I expect Amari to get in there, Luke, Robert. I expect Robert to be great. But I think there's going to be some weaknesses, and it's going to just take a little bit of time. I hope I answered your question effectively.
Oh, and then some. I appreciate that one. That was a big concern, I think, for everyone when we're looking at the roster and how it's broken down. It's obvious to us that's the weak spot. The other spot that is probably taking a lot of flack in a player, I guess it's a two-part, thing that we have to try and figure out is, one, who's going to play alongside, Marcus Peters, in that corner. It looks like on the roster it's Nate Hobbs. Would prefer to see him in that slot, but with Jacorian stepping in and being, I don't know, it looks like he's putting some good film on tape and doing his thing in practice. That also brings up the question of, is Raider Nate? I mean, there's a good circle of people that really love this man, but there's also a group that is just still trying to figure out how he consistently makes the team. What's your take on Amik Robertson as well, man? What are we missing here? That's the people, not me. I like him, but the people that really give him a hard time. What are we missing out on that guy?
All right, that's a great one. So let me go back to practice against the San Francisco 49ers. You can go back in my writing, my podcasts, my Twitter, and see me writing about this. So Marcus Epps, who was a phenomenal signing. They needed him in the backfield like they needed Robert Spillane. Catch my story Friday or Saturday inside how Dave Ziegler built this team.
Okay.
Epps puts Amik in the right spot. Amik's a guy who gets turnovers, and he goes and he breaks up a Brock Purdy pass, drops the interception. Now, I put up on my YouTube page an interview with me and Amik. I think it was after the San Francisco game. If it wasn't, I'm not lying. Or maybe it was. Yeah, it was. And you should play that for your viewers on your podcast sometime. I'm like, Amik,
Yeah.
you dropped the INT, baby. And he said, I know it. I saw green. I saw an end zone. Now, I'm going to say this, and I want you to hear me, because we're not hiring Sunday school teachers, and we're not looking for our buddies that we want to go to the Applebee's with.
Mm-hmm.
But Amik Robertson, everybody on the team roots for Amik. They love him. He is the most genuine human being you've ever met.
Awesome.
I just love the guy. In fact, if take away being a football player, let's say he was a bartender at Applebee's, I'd love that kid to date my daughter. He's just one of the – I just love him. You ever met those people? They're just – I'll tell you who he reminds me of. Now, I've never met this guy personally, but just how he acts and carries himself, he reminds me of Chris Rock. It's impossible to not like him.
Okay, I like that.
He's happy. He's a hard worker. Let me tell you a great story. You want to hear a great story about Amik?
Absolutely.
I watched a guy one time throw a water bottle on the ground. And Amik sees it, runs 30 yards in 110-degree heat, picks it up, puts it in a carrier, puts it on a thing so the worker doesn't have to.
Oh, man.
I've watched him pick up a towel that somebody threw on the floor and put in a bin. He's a guy every single day. He's a blue-collar lunch pail guy that appreciates being here, loves being here. He's a young man of character, and he works his tail off. He'll do special teams. If you said to him, hey, we need you to go out warm up, you're doing special teams, you're the third corner, and we need you to sell popcorn at halftime, Amik would be like, all right.
I've got it. I'm doing it all.
Yeah.
I love it.
And so he is a guy you got to have on your team.
Mm-hmm.
Now, he made it, and a lot like Divine. Now, right. I think you could make an argument that we've seen more from him than Divine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But this is another one of them proof of the pudding years.
They're in that bubble, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm just going to tell you, everyone believes in him. He works so hard, and that means something. And he's got his teammates rooting for him. They love him, and I just think Amik Robertson. Do I think he is the best corner on this team? No, he was the last one to make the team. Mm-hmm. But he's got all of the intrinsic things. You see him when he isn't getting INTs. He's getting his hands on the ball.
Yep.
But his technique's got to be better. And I think you're going to see it. It's not for lack of effort. And he's a guy in 2023 that's playing to make a roster in 2024.
I love it. I got two more questions. I know I got to get you to bed, man, because if not, you'll be here all night. I don't want your wife coming in telling me, hey, because you taking my
wife's
time.
Good.
I'm curious about this offensive line too, Hondo. I saw on the depth chart. We got a new guard. It's going to be in silver and black this year. But the big thing that stood out to me was Thayer Mumford looks like he got the nod to start, if I'm not mistaken, at right tackle over Jermaine. And I know that's going to be a rotating cycle, and they depending on the formation, they may hop in on that. What's going on there with the line?
Well, let me just quickly say something here, and if it looks like I'm not looking at you, I'm not.
No problem.
Because I don't know where you got your information, because I'm looking at a depth chart right now.
Okay.
And Thayer is not, he's the backup to Jermaine Luminor.
Okay, I heard it on Q this morning. I heard it on your boy Q. They had a little deal about it. I think that's where I got it from earlier. I thought that it must have been a caller or something they called in about it. So
okay, now okay, but here's the deal. The depth chart that's out, they call it the unofficial.
Yeah.
Okay, but so let's just talk a little bit about the offensive line. I love talking about the big uglies. Anytime you want to get me on a roll, you can give me a turkey leg or ask me to talk about the offensive line, brother.
I love it.
So let me just say this first of all. Greg Van Roten, and when they signed this guy, I took so much heat for talking about what a great signing this was.
I remember that. I do remember that. Yeah.
I'm like, what? I could not believe this is ridiculous. Just another washed up. The man never gets hurt. He plays all the time, and he's good.
Yeah. It looks like they have him playing. They have him back up as center or left guard and right guard, or
left guard, he is your starting. Hold on, he's your starting right guard.
Yeah.
Now, so
he's backing up some spots too, I believe, too, ain't he?
Yeah, he's a Swiss Army knife. Now, I love Van Roten. Let me tell you about Van Roten. He is not Richie Incognito, who was
Richie Incognito.
yeah. Okay, but he got some mean in him. And you may remember, you can go back and watch the video. I got it. I asked Max Crosby about him earlier this year. I said, do you see a little bit of mean like Richie Incognito and Van Roten? And he laughed. He goes, Hondo, I don't see any Richie Incognito and anyone other than Richie Incognito. But let me tell you, Van Roten's got some mean in him. I like him a lot. This was a great signing. Now think about this. This is what Raider fan should get through their head. If you hate Josh McDaniels, I'm not here to convince you to like him or dislike him. That's your decision. I don't care. But these guys don't want to get fired. I mean, come on now. I've heard people, they were sent here as a pawn by Bill Belichick to destroy the Raiders. Did you not know the Raiders were already destroyed when they got here?
Right.
Okay? And so they get rid of Alex Bars, who was a very highly rated by PFF, that blocked for an NFL rushing leader, and because Van Roten just plain beat him. Yeah. Now, you go to the other guard, Dylan Parham. I love the D-man. This guy had a great, and every time I say it, you don't know what you're talking about to say Parham had a great year. Really? He's a rookie that played every game.
Yeah, he did.
Okay? And I'm telling you, I know what Josh Jacobs says about him. I know what the offensive line coach says about him. I know what's going down.
Right.
And so, you got two great guards, Andre James, anchoring that line, Colton Miller, then Jermaine Luminor, the guy that everybody loves to trash. But let me tell you something. In the Josh McDaniels system, and I've been writing and talking about this ad nauseum, they want 1, 2, 3 throw. They want the ball out in less than 3 seconds. Now, there are some plays where he's got to hold it a little bit longer.
Right.
I love Derek Carr. He is a personal friend of mine. Okay? But Derek didn't fit and the Josh McDaniels system was not a good marriage. So you saw a lot of sacks or Derek getting hit where he held the ball too long. People would say, look at Luminor. Well, I'm sorry. If the play's designed, let me give you an example. Make sure my wife isn't listening. Okay. The other day, my wife makes a beautiful pot of stewed pork chops with fresh mushrooms and onions. Okay. She says to me, this has to cook for 50 minutes. Then make sure you turn off the oven.
Yeah.
Great. So I'm working. I'm writing an article. I'm writing my article about Josh McDaniels' secret weapon. I go in there 3 hours later. I'm like, because I could hear it burning. I turn the oven off. All right. The pan's burned. Everything's burnt. She gets home. She looks at it. She goes, did you turn the oven off? I said, isn't the oven off? Now, the point was, my wife's a great cook. I am not. And that was a great meal. It's one of her favorite meals that she makes me, but it's not good when it's supposed to be cooked 50 minutes and it's on for 3 hours.
Yep.
Here's my point. The McDaniels system's going to make any offensive lineman look bad when they're not built for holding the ball 4, 5, 6 seconds unless it's a play called for that. And so Illuminor's taking some heat, not all of it deserved, because of the system. Now, Jimmy, Brian, and Aiden are getting the ball out quicker. When they have to hold it longer and the play's called, they're doing that. But I think listen, I like this offensive line. Now, I'm going to give you another one. I took a ton of criticism a year ago when I said if the Raiders don't get to the playoffs, it's not going to be the offensive line's fault.
Right.
I was right. I'm going to tell you again. Unless there's massive injuries, I'm not having concerns about the Raiders and the offensive line.
Okay. I like that.
And you can hold me accountable to it. You know that. Hey, I said the Raiders were going to go 12-5 last year. This is my 4th year covering the silver and black. First 2 years I nailed it. I blew it last year. I don't mind saying when I get it wrong because I'm not God.
We all blew it last year, brother. We all thought it was a 12-win season last season. I thought it was 12, maybe even 13 or so if we could pull it off. And it's something that we can look back on. It's a learning process. The way I see it, it's like I took the preseason this year a lot differently than where I handled the offseason last year, and my mentality towards the team is something that I'm appreciative that I've inherited now, in 2023. I put it that way, How do you feel about our, I'm reading through some of the folks here. You can't see the comments of some of the folks from the nation. They're asking, one is a really good one. Shout out to Auntie Six. He says, what's your thoughts on, I already know the thoughts on the kicker. We have an out of this world kicker, but punt return. How are we looking? That was our main concern. I think we talked about last year or beginning of this year with Renfro returning kicks. It doesn't look like that's the case. Is that going to stay the same, you think, or you think that Renfro's still going to be that backup?
Well, hang on. I'm going to tell you right now. You're going to see a lot of DeAndre Carter. And that's a good thing. Let me tell you about DeAndre Carter. That guy is tough. He's not big.
Yeah,
he's tough.
5'8". Yeah, he's a little guy.
I mean, no offense. I've had some steaks bigger than him. But that guy's tough. And, I mean, Trey Tucker, tough. I don't think the nation needs to be worried about punt and kick returner.
Good. That's a relief. I think, when we look at last year and we say, did we get better? The one spot I would say, with the addition of, like I said, this conversation of talking about Spillane, I would say in every position we've made an attempt, and it looks like we've gotten better. We've added the people and the pieces that fit the system. It may not be the nice, big, beautiful pieces that we see in free agency or in the draft that we're like, hey, we got to get this guy. But they seem like they're fitting the system, or at least they're bringing in players that fit their schemes that they want to get.
Let me say this to you, Cush, and I know we've gone long. I apologize, so we'll end with this. But I want to say something to your listeners because I have so much respect for you and your listeners.
Thank you.
My job is not to hype you or to get you mad. I watch some media and they'll just throw any crap. I mean, Kush, did I or did I not say to you before the draft, there is no drama. Josh is going to be back before the first game.
Yep.
I reported it for months, so you'd seen media. Oh, great concern, and click, 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 click. Hondo, what's the update? There is no update.
Yep.
He's going to sign before the first game.
Yep.
So I want to say this. This team is exponentially better at every position. Okay, now obviously they kept the kicker and the punter. There's no upgrade there. They got Josh back. No upgrade there because these guys are already among the best. Max Crosby's not an upgrade. But the defensive line, the linebackers, the defensive backfield, the offensive line, Ran Roten, big upgrade. Okay, then you go back, you look at Aiden O'Connell as a backup, Brian Hoyer. That's an upgrade over what they had with Derek and Stidham. The wide receiver core, exponentially better. Tight ends, better. So let me say this to you. I don't think this is a playoff team. 9 wins. Okay? There's potential to steal a couple, and I'm going to talk about this tomorrow on my podcast. But the thing that people need to understand is I don't want people at the end of the year, you said we were better. Well, you are. You had 6 wins last year. But where I'm telling you is 9 wins is to me where they're going to get with Jimmy. But you can see where the Raiders are finally going somewhere, where they're headed. Now, I'm going to say something that's going to make your listeners angry. And I understand if you want to be angry with me, that's your choice. But come on, Uncle Hondo's just a big, lovable furball. Give me a break.
There you go for it, man.
But I know what people don't like to hear the Patriot way. Well, the Patriot way has a lot of Super Bowl rings.
Right.
So you can hate the Patriots, but still want their winning. And one of the things that the Patriots always did was they went out and got free agents to pick and play who do specific things. So they had cap room to make room when it was time to make room. These guys went out and they may have not signed all of the biggest stars, but they got the guys that fit their scheme. They wanted Spillane. They targeted them. They got them. They wanted Epps. They targeted. They got them. They're better because of those 2 men. And so what I would say to you is this. I think there's a lot of reason to be optimistic that your franchise is going in the right direction, but I don't want to blow wind and tell you, oh, get hyped and buy your playoff tickets now. I don't think it's a playoff team. I think it could sneak in there, but even if they sneak in, they're not a championship team. But they're getting there. And I think this is the year you're going to see progression toward it, my friend.
Before we get out of here, we gotta at least say hello to the elephant in the room and discuss it. Folks, if you guys are late coming in, we're speaking with Mr. Hondo Carpenter Sr. He's the editor and publisher for Sports Illustrated, Fan Nation, Las Vegas Raiders Insider. Hondo, what is going on? Any updates that you've seen with Chandler Jones? I don't want to speculate anything, and I don't want to get you out of your position to where I know that you're trusted with a lot of things within the locker room. You see a lot, you know a lot. I would never ask you to overextend that. But any updates at all? Our prayers are up with Chandler. We know that, he's going through some stuff. Is there anything you could provide an update at 7:30 at night on a random Wednesday for us?
Well, a couple of things. My phone's been blowing up since I've been on with you. So if anything, if anything has changed, I haven't been able to answer my phone. I've gotten, I think, 5 calls, and I don't even know how many texts. And I can
keep staying on, then, my friend.
Yeah,
even more.
And I can see who they are. I'm not obviously going to tell you. So if anything is blown up, I reserve the right for you to show me some grace. But absolutely. I can tell you, before getting on the phone with you, I heard some really good positive things.
Okay.
I just want to say this. As a journalist, my job is not to tell you or your listeners what to think. I'm tired of the media treating people like they're stupid. Tired of it. And I don't care if it's sports media, weather media. If one more weather person says, well, you're going to probably need some sunscreen. It's hot. Shut up. Shut up. Don't put your animals in the car. If you're putting animals in the car, you deserve to go to jail.
Yeah.
But don't tell me to put on sunscreen. Shut up. Okay, it's the same way in politics.
Yep.
You can't even listen to anybody just give you the news anymore. It's from the left or the right, and they're treating us like we're stupid, telling us what to think.
Yeah.
Okay, but at the same time, I cover the Las Vegas Raiders. Chandler had a personal matter. And Chandler is a terrific guy. He is loved by management. He's loved by his teammates. And all I'm going to say is this. A lot of people are trying to use this to say, see, Josh McDaniels has lost the locker room, or they use it to bash Chandler. And I can't do anything about people that look for reasons to bash people. All I'm going to say to you is I think I've got a pretty firm handle on what's going on. And as a journalist, I don't think it's anybody's right to know.
Mm-hmm.
They're handling it internally. If it was causing issues in the locker room, like people divided over Chandler and Josh, then I would think it would become a story that I would talk about. That's not the case. And I'm just going to say this. I think the way Josh McDaniels handled it today continued to earn him respect, which he already has, even though a lot of people say he hasn't. It's not true, with his team. And I wish Chandler nothing but the best. And I can't wait to see him back out there. And if that doesn't happen, I'm always going to have great thoughts on Chandler Jones. And I just think right now people need to just be smart enough to understand some things happen sometimes that on the surface they don't look like what they really are underneath.
Yeah, absolutely. I second that. Well, Hondo, before we get out of here, I just want to let you know I really appreciate you as always, brother, for just popping in and talking. It always is a pleasure. I know how intense your day is. I see you on my TV on a daily basis, and so you're not hiding from how hard you work, and we see you on Twitter. So for you to take time to talk out, and talk to a random fan at 7:30 at night, number one, I appreciate your family for allowing this time. Number two, I appreciate you for taking that time and that grace to be able to grace the people that are watching. And with that being said, what else do you have on the horizon? Where can people find you? What would you like to leave the listeners and the viewers with? Anything from your perspective, sir?
Couple of things. You can check us out on Twitter at Hondo Carpenter, HONDO CARPENTER. We did 13 pieces of content today. I tweeted every one of them. That'll take you to our Sports Illustrated website. Nobody gives more than what we do, and it's 100% free. We're not trying to jilt you for subscriptions. We just ask you to read, and if you like it, share it. You can go to our YouTube, which is Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast with Hondo Carpenter. You can go there. We got lots of information. We're giving it out. And I want to say this to you, because you just said something, and you and I are friends, but if you ever say it again, it's going to rankle me. You just said, I appreciate you taking the time to grace us, the fans. Media needs to remember, if it isn't for fans, we don't have a job.
Yeah.
And remember I told you I'm tired about media telling people what to think?
Yep.
Bush, you know me. I don't tell people what to think.
No.
And I just give them the information. But I'm going to tell you this. The day a media member does not have time to talk to fans is a day he's probably gotten a little bit big for his britches or her britches or whatever.
Yep.
And you need to remember what this is about. Without the amazing fans of Raider Nation clicking, watching, I don't have a job. Now, my job is to not give information to make them mad so they click or happy so they click. I just take the approach every single day that I need to get better, but I need to give people the best information, let them draw their own conclusions, and over time that builds an audience that people respect you and they know I may not always agree, but I can trust this person. That's what I try to be. And I fail some days, and some days I don't. I just try to probably to have more days that I make it than I don't.
Well, my friend, I tell you what, your integrity to the sport, your honor that you put towards it is like a craftsman, you know, and like I told you before, you may not see the bigger impact behind the things that you do. I know that you do, but you know, you put it off as like that's what we all should be doing. They're not all doing that, Hondo. And so for that, like I said, that separates me for are you in my eyes from everyone else. And
You know,
like I said,
I
everyone else is there.
follow fans on Twitter,
Oh yeah, you do. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
so let's do this for every one of your viewers for the next 24 hours.
Hmm.
Now, only 24 hours, so it is
24. Yep.
7:40 p.m. on the 6th
Yep.
Pacific time. If you follow me on Twitter and you say, "Hey, I heard you on Kush," I'll follow you back. Now, listen, if you use a bunch of
Yeah. Yeah.
language
Yeah. Yeah. We ain't
that's
doing
in,
all that. Yeah. Don't be getting all crazy.
yeah, if you get all crazy, I'm just going to unfollow you.
Hmm.
But you know what? If you do that, I'd love to follow you. I love interacting with fans. I owe it to you guys, and I just want you to know, Kush, I love coming on with you. I love your fans. You guys are the best. Thanks for having me, brother.
We can call you Big H, right? I heard that before. We're gonna call you Big H, or is that reserved for the ones that know?
You don't tell where that came from, though.
Absolutely. Well, Hondo, again, you have a blessed night, brother. God bless you, man. I appreciate everything. And until next time, man.
Thanks again for your service, Kush. I appreciate you. And thanks to all your fans who listened.
Thank you, my brother. I appreciate you. And until next
Appreciate you.
time, like our great owner Al Davis would once say, just win, baby.